Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to visualize the staggering 18-year financial impact of choosing a performance-based sales career over a traditional salaried role. This is a debate so many of us face right out of college, right? Well, we're going to unpack the exact mechanics behind this massive wealth gap and explore why the safe route often ends up being the riskiest choice you can possibly make. Our core focus today is uncovering exactly why sales careers create wealth, and we're going to do that by tracking two totally distinct lives, side by side. Okay, let's dive right in and ask the ultimate question. What really happens when one person chooses the risk of commission and another chooses the safety of a stable salary at age 22? Picture this. You've got exactly $900 to your name in a checking account and a decision in front of you that feels small in the moment, but trust me, it is absolutely not small.
Let's compare our two subjects. Path A steps into business-to-business software sales with a pretty modest $32,000 base salary. Naturally, their family immediately calls it a gamble. Now, Path B takes a $42,000 salaried operations role. Their grandparents love it. They call it stable, largely because society pushes this illusion of stability so incredibly hard. The offer letter even repeats the word stable 4 times. Path A might look a bit foolish on day one, but they are playing a very, very different game.
To truly grasp why sales careers create wealth, we're going to trace their exact financial footprints. We'll stop at 5 critical milestones over nearly 2 decades, taking us all the way from age 22 to age 40. Because, let's be real, wealth isn't built in a single year. It's forged in those unseen, daily habits that compound over a massive time horizon.
All right, Section 1. The fork in the road.
Moving into Section 2, seeking security and stability. Most forks in the road are quiet, and the path you choose dictates the system you build your entire life inside of. Path B chooses to build their life inside a system handed to them, deeply focused on finding stability as an ops coordinator at a regional insurance firm.
To really understand Path B's mindset, we just have to look at the industry they entered. Insurance is fundamentally a contract that pools clients' risks to provide financial protection and reimbursement against losses. It's kind of fascinatingly ironic, isn't it? Path B is dedicating their entire career to an industry literally built on calculating and mitigating downside risk, which perfectly mirrors their own life choices.
These core principles, loss minimization, providing security, and spreading of risk, they reflect Path B's entire life philosophy. They want to avoid risk rather than maximize their upside. They're desperately seeking a solid floor. But what they don't realize is how terrifyingly thin that floor actually is. By trading away upside potential for absolute safety, they leave themselves incredibly vulnerable to macro factors like inflation, which just quietly eats away at the purchasing power of that safe, fixed salary year after year.
Path B is executing tasks within the rigid, pre-designed systems of massive global giants. Think Allianz, Prudential, AXA, Berkshire Hathaway. They trade their personal financial leverage for perceived stability. But here's the kicker. Corporate systems are intentionally designed to scale the wealth of the founders and the shareholders, definitely not the employees doing the daily tasks. The system was just never designed for Path B to negotiate their way out of a fixed wage bracket.
Section 3. The skill that scales. Meanwhile, Path A chooses a completely different trajectory by deliberately practicing a unique scalable competency. But man, it starts out brutally hard. Imagine making 40 cold calls a day and hearing a harsh, visceral no 37 times before a single person says yes. A Harvard Business Review study actually found that 92% of salespeople quit after just 4 rejections. Passing this intense grit test is the literal barrier to entry for the wealth that follows. Path A learns slowly that rejection isn't personal. It's just raw data about a conversation they simply haven't figured out yet.
Daniel Pink absolutely hit the nail on the head here. Selling is not a personality type. It is a compounding human skill. Path A is building the exact ability that scales income exponentially. Think about how this compounds. As you learn to handle objections, read human psychology, and expertly close deals, you reach a point where closing a $100,000 contract takes the exact same time and physical effort it used to take you to close a $1,000 deal. That is the true definition of leverage, folks.
Which brings us to Section 4, when the math breaks.
8 years have passed, bringing us to age 30. The daily habits of both individuals have quietly compounded, leading to a massive financial fracture between the two paths. Path A now boasts a staggering net worth of $248,000. How? It comes down to the structure of sales compensation. Because sales provides large lump sum commission checks, unlike that slow, predictable drip of a biweekly salary, Path A had the raw capital required to buy heavy assets, like a duplex and eventually a triplex. They're generating real estate cash flow while they're busy on sales calls. This is exactly why sales creates wealth.
In devastating contrast, Path B's net worth is a mere $20,300. Without a compounding skill, the math of a rigid salary simply breaks down over time. And here's the scariest part. If Path B's salary suddenly stops, the math of their entire life breaks within exactly 60 days. A single source of income is an absolute vulnerability masquerading as stability.
Warren Buffett famously noted that the most important investment you can make is in yourself. Now, he wasn't talking about generic self-help books. He meant tangible skills. He meant building a high-leverage competency that cannot be outsourced and does not depreciate. Unlike specific software platforms that inevitably become obsolete, the human skill of persuasion survives recessions. Investing in an unsinkable asset like sales ability is the absolute greatest long-term move you can make.
Section 5. The cost of comfort.
Hitting age 35, we witness the harsh realities of executing inside someone else's system. Path B has a life that functions, sure, but it functions completely without momentum. Because their fixed budget has absolutely zero slack, a routine $5,200 medical procedure turns into crippling 21.99% APR credit card debt. This isn't a moral failure, it's a structural one. Playing it entirely safe is ironically quite dangerous, because when your budget lacks elasticity, unexpected costs immediately convert into momentum-killing debt.
Finally, Section 6. Why sales creates wealth.
We reached age 40, 18 years after that quiet fork in the road. This is where the ultimate wealth creation power of a compounding sales career becomes fully undeniable. Path A has built a massive, financially independent net worth of $920,000. They have concrete options now. And what does that actually mean? It means having the financial freedom to take a 6-month sabbatical, angel invest in a friend's startup, or just walk away from a toxic boss without a second thought. For them, drawing a salary is now an entirely optional exercise.
On the flip side, Path B was devastated by a corporate restructuring layoff at age 37. They quickly burned through a $9,100 severance and currently have a net worth of just $61,000. And the worst part? That money is almost entirely locked inside a 401k they can't access for 19 more years without severe penalties. What good is paper wealth if you can't touch it when you actually need it to survive a layoff? The safety net was an illusion the whole time.
When we look at this final side-by-side comparison, it reveals an astonishing $859,000 wealth gap. It completely separates a life of modeled, concrete freedom from a life of mandatory paycheck-to-paycheck dependence. Path A deliberately cultivated a high-leverage skill that disconnected their earning potential from the literal hours on a clock. Path B built an ability to execute inside a rigid system, and that execution will always have a hard, unyielding ceiling. So when you consider the quiet decisions you are making today about risk, skills, and comfort, take a moment to really think about the long-term mechanics of those choices. When the avoidance compounds over 2 decades, and the skills compound over 2 decades, and that random Tuesday after the decision finally arrives, which 40-year-old's Tuesday do you actually want to wake up to? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.